Yusuf at Michigan. All right, we're gonna give it a couple minutes for people to jump in. But yeah, this is our first TechPod event. Super excited. Vicky and I, we started this a couple of weeks ago. We just wanted to connect people with the business side of tech. And we have our awesome panelists, Aaron, Danielle, and Angelica. And they are product marketing manager interns at Salesforce, Google, Microsoft this summer. And super excited to have everyone. If you guys want to connect with us on LinkedIn too, if you aren't already, feel free. Vicky, I'll let you introduce yourself if you want.
Yeah, for sure. So thank you so much, Joseph, for starting this. But yeah, so I'm super excited to see everybody here. I'm Vicky, if you guys don't know already. I'm the other co-founder of TechPod. And this is our first event, so we're super excited to see that there are so many people joining us here today. But a little bit about me, I am a senior at UC Berkeley studying environmental economics and policy. I'm really interested in marketing, so I'm really pumped to see what the panelists have to say about product marketing in this panel. And yeah, Joseph will be primarily doing the moderation, and hope you guys enjoy.
All right, let's get into it. Looks like people are, we got 192 of you guys. That's so cool. Excited to start this. Let's start with intros. Aaron, Danielle, and Angelica. I'll just go in order of how I see you on the screen. So let's start with just like a little intro about yourself, where you interned, what you're hoping to do in the future. Yeah, let's go with Aaron.
Cool. What's up, everyone? My name is Aaron. I am a product marketing manager intern this summer at Microsoft. I'm currently still an intern right now and on Friday, but yeah, for my future, I actually don't plan on staying in product marketing. Kind of want to go the PM product management route, but I still had an amazing time this summer. If you're interested in interning at Microsoft, connect with me on LinkedIn and I'll set you up with some info or like referrals or something. Yeah.
Awesome. Nice to meet you, Aaron. Danielle?
Hi, everyone. My name's Danielle. This summer, I interned at Salesforce as an APMM intern. I worked in the small to medium business team. In terms of the future, I'm very interested in entrepreneurship, like every Bay Area kid ever. I'm actually also running a education startup that I founded this summer with over 2,000 users. So love to share more about that if anyone's interested. And yeah, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Nice to meet you, Danielle. That's super cool. Always awesome to see entrepreneurs. Let's definitely talk about that later. Angelica.
Hi, everybody. My name is Angelica, and I'm a senior at UC Berkeley, and I just wrapped up my APMM internship at Google, and I'm really excited to be here and talk to you all today about my experience.
Awesome. Nice to meet all you guys. Super excited to get into this. Let's just jump right into the questions. Not everyone has to answer them, but these are the questions that came from the audience originally when we posted. I'll just give I'll give a little brief outline of how tonight or today, whatever the time is for you guys, is going to be. So the first 15 minutes, we're going to do some pre-selected questions from the questions that you already submitted. And then we'll do some live audience questions. We'll submit a Slido in the chat where you guys can ask live questions. And then we'll go right back to some more pre-selected questions and then close out and do the coffee chat raffle at the end. So we're going to be doing 3 lucky winners. So stay to the end, to the last 5 minutes if you want to be included in that. All right, so let's start with the first question. How did you guys get into your internships? What does the application and interview process look like for our product marketing internship? And are there any questions that are typically asked for the interview? And overall, like, how was the process?
Yeah, I can just start. So the recruiting timeline, I'm sure it's different for every company, but I believe the Google app opens the Google Business app, which is the APMM program. It's under Bold, which is the business program. And it starts in, I would say, like early September, mid-September. The app opens up and you get to apply. And I ended up applying around October. And I was always interested in marketing and product marketing, marketing strategy, and the APMM role is as close to all those things like consulting, marketing, strategy work, a lot of those things mixed together and a lot of creative energy as well. So that's kind of how I was introduced to the role, to someone like some of my peers who were familiar with the APMM space, also like who worked at Google at the same time. They introduced me to the role because I didn't really know about it until then. So that's kind of how I got my first exposure to it. And in terms of the timeline, I applied early October. I didn't hear anything back until early December, saying that my application has been read by somebody, which is great. And then I think a week later, I got notified that they want to do first round for me. And then in January, there was first round, and then I got the offer in end of January. So that's the timeline of things. And I believe I was on the I wasn't on the super early track or the late track. There are people definitely who got offers before me and after me, but it is on a rolling basis. So I would apply as soon as things are out.
I can go next. So for me, it was a similar process. Microsoft's marketing internship, their ACE marketing program, opens up early August, so it's already out. So I applied maybe early August, and then I heard back a couple weeks later, and then had a phone screen late August, and then I didn't hear back all the way until like mid-October, and then I interviewed on their Super Day, which is 4 back-to-back interviews. And then I heard back like 3 weeks later with an offer. I think Joseph asked a little bit about the type of questions we were asked. Most of them for me were just behavioral. There was like a select few like quote unquote technical marketing questions, just things you'll find on Glassdoor if you just search like Microsoft ACE marketing interview questions. So that was basically my journey to Microsoft.
Hop in with Salesforce. So Salesforce was about, I think it was like about November is when the application came out. It was a pretty long process. So I had the initial screening, one round of interview, about a month passed, then another round, and then a final round with 3 people interviewing me. And then I heard back after that. So I didn't hear back until basically around February, just because there was such a long cycle. So it was about like a 4-month process of interviewing. In terms of questions asked, I'd say I would highly, highly, highly recommend, cannot recommend enough, really doing your research and knowing about the culture of the company. So a lot of time that also comes down to not just what's on their website, but also what you can, hear about from their employees. So a lot of the questions I had were about kind of culture and culture fit. So there were the behavioral questions, like Aaron mentioned, you can find those on Glassdoor. But what also is really crucial is knowing what sort of questions they'll ask you to gauge culture fit. And you need to really have a good answer in terms of why you think you're a good fit for their culture and what examples you can give.
I forgot to add about the questions, but what helped me a lot was I was actually prepping for consulting, which recruits in like August, September, which is now. I'm sure some of you guys are doing that. So consulting questions really helped. The APMM questions, the technical portion of what I was asked at Google was very similar to consulting questions. So like case study, situation, strategy, like frameworking it out, bucketing your answers. So a lot of critical thinking, problem solving skills. And they want to know like, how are you going to measure impact? Like how specific can you get with solutions in a small amount of time? So I would say like prepping consulting interviews, even if you're not going to be interviewing for consulting, I think is always a great strategy to have. And like Aaron said, like Glassdoor has a pretty good idea of like what types of questions there are, but like typical marketing questions, whether it's like, competitive analysis, like market sizing, strategy, campaigns, and even like a deep dive on a certain Google product. Again, like doing your research on the product itself and just getting an idea of like how you can talk about a product or certain thing that Google offers with confidence, I think is really a good thing to have as well. And of course, like what Danielle said, like culture and all that stuff is super important.
Great answers, guys. I think a lot of members of the audience are non-technical or might not have a computer science background, but are interested in, breaking into tech through product marketing or other non-technical roles. What are some ways where you can stand out from someone with a more technical background for a product-focused role like product marketing? And what do you think made you stand out when you were applying to your companies?
I can hop on this question. So the first internship I had after my freshman year was product management. So it was kind of similar because it was a non-technical product management. And I think what you really want to do there, if you don't have a background in tech, is make it as easy as possible for them to see that you still have the skills. So having like very clear things like on your cover letter, and also even breaking it out on your resume saying, here's my analysis skills, here's my research skills. And if you have any marketing skills, that would also be beneficial. But like, if you don't have like core marketing experience, showing that you have research skills and you have analytical skills are incredibly important. And also like another thing that they really look for is leadership, because in product management and product marketing, a lot of times you're working very cross-collaboratively, especially in tech. So showing that you've worked well in a team and you lead teams well is something that's also essential to show.
Yeah, and just to echo that, basically, I think passion like trumps everything. If you can show that you're really educated on what the company does, what their values and mission is, that's going to show in interviews. And to answer the second part, I think you mentioned, sorry, what was that? What made like us stand out? I think a wide variety of experiences did that. So for me, I had past marketing internships, but also would do like consulting things and also club leadership roles. So I think companies really like it when you're multifaceted. So you're able to do all types of things. As business roles, you really have to know a lot more than just marketing to do well.
And for those of us who never had an internship before, like I didn't have a single internship before my junior summer, which is what a lot of these programs are. So like definitely don't sweat it. And like, if I can do it, you can definitely do it too. A lot of my resume was packed with actually my work study job. I had a campus job, so they were not like nothing too sexy and flashy, but really quantifying those experiences. I am a business administration and toxicology major. So I guess the toxicology part is more of my STEMmy sciencey, but I mean, obviously it's not anything product or computer science related. So I don't think that mattered too much, but at least for what I can speak of the APMMs I've noticed at Google, all the interns had like a business, econ, psychology, like really anything. And for my experiences, a lot of it, like I said, was my work study job. And those roles have been both in social media marketing, and I had other marketing positions on campus for like really large organizations. So I think like even if you can't get an internship or even anything like super flashy, I think getting campus or club experience is super valuable, and just quantifying those experiences, like your impact numbers, like the goals you reach, your KPIs, like also key performance indicators, growth, like how much money you guys raise, engagement, like really making it as number based as possible. I think you can really sell yourself to be more analytical than you might really be.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about, the stuff that you actually did during your internship. So is there any interesting project or non-NDA thing that you could share at a place like Google, Salesforce, Microsoft? What kinds of projects did you get to do, and what did that teach you about what you enjoy about product marketing, or just the tech industry in general?
I can share. So I worked on the small to medium business team at Salesforce. What I really enjoyed about my internship is there wasn't even a specific project that they said, okay, this is what you're just going to do. My manager really worked with me to see what I was passionate about and what I was interested in doing. So I don't know how much you guys know about Salesforce, but they're known for trailblazer marketing, which is basically just having the customer tell the story themselves. So as opposed to saying like, oh, this is a customer who's really happy with our product, the customer is the one actually featured in the advertisement or at their annual conference talking about how much they love Salesforce, how they use it. So because that's what Salesforce is known for, that's what I really wanted to work on this summer. So I led this project where I talked to about 20 small to medium business companies and was just learning about their product. Particularly, it was really relevant because I was learning about how they're using Salesforce during COVID and creating customer stories that were then leveraged across sales, service, and marketing. What was really incredible about this project was, customers are so important, especially at Salesforce. Like, they're known for their customer centricity. So I was really surprised that they actually trusted me to talk to customers. I had to go through a lot of training in order to be able to do that. And like the senior vice president was sometimes on these calls, which was like incredible. So I'd say that was like a really great learning experience. And what I like about this company, and I'm sure a lot of other APMM internships as well, is they really try to make it high impact and tailored towards what you want to do.
Yeah, and just as Danielle said that, I think that my experience at Google was really similar in terms of like a lot of really great impact work. I know she said that she didn't have a specific project, but so for context, I was an APMM and I was placed on Google Pay. So the Google Pay, again, is branched out into like a global team and the US team, and there's so many teams, but I was on the US consumer marketing team for Google Pay, and I was in charge of mainly 2 projects, and I also consulted on a 3rd project. So my first project would be the consumer research for this exciting thing possibly coming out. So user research, and then working with like our 3rd-party research agency. Obviously, Google doesn't do all this work themselves. Like, we hire outsource like branding agency, advertising agency, social media agency, all these agencies to do some of the work for us. So I was the lead in the consumer research for this upcoming product we have. So like, delegating all those tasks, like telling a lot of like senior VPs at those research companies like what to do, and like acting as the work stream lead for that project. And this information was super useful because not only did our marketers get to use it for like messaging and like what's hitting well, what's not hitting well, but then also taking this to the product engineers like, hey, nobody's interested in this feature, or like we need to fix this feature, or talking to the UI UX team of like, nobody really thought this was a cute design, or like we like these colors better. And so it was really great to see like how important consumer research is and how it really shifts the entire plan and trajectory of a product launch, or just really any product, whether it's out in the market or not. So that was the first thing I did. And the second thing I did was come up with the go-to-market strategy for the college segment for this project that I'm working on. And so there wasn't really a framework for how they did college student go-to-marketing strategy. And there really isn't a specific Google product that is just for college students, but just happened that our big demographic that we're looking at for this product, a large component was college students. So I led the whole strategy for that, and like implementing like different, what are the messaging we want to get across, like what are priorities, like what activation methods, like very, I guess, brainstormy type, but really fleshing out like the good ones, and like working with respective team members that can actually help execute this. Obviously, like it hasn't been executed that I left before launch, but that was really cool to be a part of. And third, I did some social media consulting for this social media stuff. I have a little bit of social media background, like just being like a social media creator, like super small plug. But I like make content online, so I have experience with like a little bit of social media. And so I like help them shape their narrative and like making sure the social media agency is doing a good job, and like, oh, that person's not relevant, like we should get this influencer, or nobody likes this movie, like making sure they're like having someone Gen Z on board. So I know that was a lot, but those are the 3 things I did.
Yeah, and similarly to Angelica's last part, I'm gonna give you like a really, really high level overview of what I did this summer. I was handling developer content for emerging social media platforms for the Azure Apps team. So I would look into new platforms that are growing, such as TikTok, Instagram Reels, Byte, to name a few, YouTube Shorts upcoming late 2020. But I would develop content and research like the developer audiences on those markets, and then create content for those things just to test to see if it's something Azure should like implement into their marketing strategy in the future. But yeah, that's like the main thing I did. But I also did a bunch of competitor research, of course, market research, as basically all PMMs will do. And then the good thing about my internship was I got a lot of ownership over over the content and the things I did, which I really loved. I know at a lot of big tech companies, you're just like one out of many, many thousands of people. But during my internship, I was really thankfully able to be like a product owner, and I was very responsible for my own thing. And I think it will drive a lot of impact for Azure in the future, as it's most likely something that will do moving forward.
I also wanted to quickly, jump in and clarify something. I think someone said that I didn't really have a main project. I did have a main project. Sorry if that wasn't clear. The project I was describing was something that I owned end to end. So like sourcing customers, talking to them, and then creating a final presentation to the whole business unit, and like suggesting feature recommendations and different go-to-market strategies based on my findings. Just wanted to clarify that.
Awesome. I also want to shout out that Angelica, you kind of undersold yourself. Angelica has like 100,000 followers on TikTok, so follow her TikTok for good career content. So let's go to the audience questions. So we have a question from Gloria. In your personal view, when do you think during the whole interview and application process, do you think you really stood out among the thousands of other candidates, whether that was the resume or the phone screen or the actual interview, whether that's the behavioral or the case interview? At what point do you think really made you stand out as a candidate?
I can start this one. I just want to say, like, I don't think there's a definite answer because I don't know. And it'd be like really, I don't know, foolish of me to be like, oh, I think I got in because of this, because I mean, no one has told me anyways. And it's the same thing with like college applications. Like we never know exactly what got us in. But I do think that, I know for the APMM section, there's like an essay you submit of like why Google APMM program. And I know a lot of people don't take it very seriously, maybe like similar to a cover letter, but I would spend a lot of time on that, really breaking down why Google Bold, why Google, why tech, why this program. And I feel like they definitely read that. And that's really how they at least filter out that first round, I feel like. In terms of like resume experiences, like I said, I didn't have a prior internship, anything like awesome. It was like social media marketing roles at UC Berkeley School of Public Health, or just something on campus roles. So definitely like you can really spin a lot of your campus roles into some great work that you did. Not in like an unethical way, but you know, really making sure you capture your full impact that you brought. And so yeah, I mean, after that, I'm sure it's like, you know, keywords, like making sure your resume is nicely formatted. If you can get a Google referral, that'd be great. I also know that at Google, like I know so many people who, like current employees, have said, I've given over 200 referrals in my lifetime and none of them have gotten a job or an internship. So like, I don't know how much they help. Like maybe I think they just help your app get looked at, but there's also no guarantee. So I did have a referral, and I know people who got in without a referral, and I know people who didn't get in with the referral. So I don't know how much that would help or not help. But yeah, really just like crafting your own story in that one-page essay, I think is really where you can stand out. So do a good job on those.
I can add on to that. So I think, I mean, again, it's partly speculative, but in terms of like first just getting your foot in the door and getting that initial like interview or screening interview, a lot of that comes down to having, you know, either a referral or like a really strong resume that usually has to be very quantitative. You have to show metrics because otherwise it's just kind of vague and they have to take your word for it. Or having, so yeah, so that's that kind of first step. And once you get like to the interview, I think that's when it's more behavioral questions. That's something that, you know, if you know the STAR method, if you don't know that, look it up. That's something you should use when you're interviewing. And then I think when it comes down to the sort of final nitty gritty, it just comes down to culture. That's actually a question, you know, the question of like, oh, what made me stand out was something I asked the people who interviewed me at the end. And what one of the recruiters said to me is, like I mentioned earlier, culture is a really huge thing, especially at Salesforce, because they're kind of known for being, you know, really caring about the community, really having high impact with their employees. So he mentioned that a lot of the people that came to this final stage, like everyone was super, super qualified and they were just splitting hairs at this point. But a lot of people came and they seemed a little like presumptuous. They thought the world like owed them something. Whereas when I came, I really presented myself as like a hard worker, but not complacent. And he said like that was what stood out. So I think that's something just to keep in mind. Like, don't be overly complacent. It's good to be confident, but you don't want to come across as like a know-it-all.
Yeah, exactly what both of them said. I have nothing to add to that.
Awesome. Yeah, that's really good insights. I think a lot of the audience might be freshmen or sophomores, and all three of you are class of 2021, so we're seniors. But I'm sure you guys had lots of experience and maybe internships the previous summers before your junior year. So what did you guys do the past couple summers, and what advice do you have for current freshmen and sophomores who might not be going for that big, company name internship yet, but something that would prepare them for something like that in the future?
Yeah, I can talk a little about this because I know I mentioned it, but and I'm sure Aaron and Danielle, they can offer you better tips. But I didn't get an internship my freshman sophomore year. I was like rejected a lot of places, and my sophomore summer I studied abroad while all of my friends were at like top companies, which is a very, very valuable experience as well. But yeah, I would say like don't sweat it too much. Like try if you can, whether it's like smaller companies or larger companies. But I mean, obviously there's less opportunities for sophomores and freshmen, especially this year. Like full-time people are barely able to get jobs. So I have, maybe it's just in my head, but maybe freshmen and sophomore are probably not as prioritized in this economy right now. So I wouldn't sweat it too much. Working free for startups or volunteer, like, yeah, volunteer I think is super a great way to get involved for like nonprofits and like really making your own experiences. Work studies, campus jobs, tons of other things you can do besides traditional application stuff. But I can't give you any tips on that because I didn't get any offers for those first 2 years. So maybe Aaron and Danielle can have better tips.
Yeah, well, I definitely agree with what she said. If you're a freshman, sophomore, you can literally have like any experience on your resume and it'll go a long way. But for me, last summer, the summer after my sophomore year, I had an internship at PACCAR, which is like a trucking company. So not my greatest interest, but like it was still a great internship to have and experience to have on my resume. I did marketing for them. Got in through for referral. So that I know Angelica said a lot of referrals don't work, but in some cases it will. So if you can, I think be a good idea to try to get it, but it won't make or break it. But other things you can easily do is try to find just really small like club leadership roles at school. I think that there's so many things at school, whether it be directly related to marketing, like finance, whatever. Like I was a VP of finance for a club, but I don't have any other finance like positions. But I think I was still able to talk about the position during interviews for all the interviews I did for other companies as well. And then I was also part of like this consulting club at school where I was able to like consult on small local businesses on how to navigate through their times like during COVID and other situations. But yeah, just taking full advantage of your resources at school, I think is a really good option.
Yeah, so speak a little on my experiences. So summer after freshman year, I worked at a company named NG Inc. So it's like a really small startup. If possible, I would definitely say like, try to get a startup and try to get like a very small startup because, especially if you're freshman year, that's when you really want to grind. You want to learn as much as possible. So a startup is an amazing place because you got to just do a little bit of everything. So I did product management and I got to actually launch a brand pretty much just by myself and like a couple other interns, which was a really incredible experience. And I definitely learned a lot from that. The summer after sophomore year, I worked at a place called Coupa Software. So software company about mid-size. It's like a B2B. So if you're another business, you've probably heard of it. If you're a consumer, you probably haven't. And then last summer at Salesforce. I didn't have referrals for any of these, but talking with my recruiters, I really wish that I had, honestly, because from, what they said, they do say it makes a big difference. Of course, it's not going to give you the role automatically, but it can, you know, get your resume actually in front of them. In terms of like other experiences, I would definitely echo what Aaron and Angelica have said about getting like nonprofit work, because there, you know, there's people who always need help and there's always more to do with that. So in between internships, I volunteered at a couple nonprofits and done product marketing roles, which has been like a really great experience. So the thing I would say too is, yeah, like do startups, do nonprofit roles, because that's something where you can have like a bigger impact and have a lot more experience. And the other thing too is, right now, if you can't get marketing positions, because those tend to be high demand, try sales. It's very similar and you can usually get some crossover there.
I love all the love for startups. If you guys know me, I am a huge proponent of doing startup internships too. So that's great advice. We have another question about PM. So some of you like kind of alluded to this, how you've done product or project management in the past, but you know, what is the difference between product marketing management, product management, project management, and to what extent do these roles expect interns to take on leadership, ownership, and autonomy?
I can touch a little bit on that. So my product management role, so product management is a little bit more about like, you know, developing the product itself. So it's everything up to the launch. And then product marketing is pretty much everything after the launch. The thing is, in tech, those tend to get a little blurred because, you know, with product marketing, you're continuously doing research and redefining the product and, you know, rolling it out again and again. So the line tends to be a little bit blurry. Another distinction is product management can sometimes be technical or non-technical. So a lot of times when it says product management, they do require like a CS degree or something like that. So just make sure you're keeping note of that if you're not interested in technical roles. In terms of, you know, what they look for, I think, yeah, you've really got to be a self-starter. Having leadership experience is really important, but you can get leadership experience in a lot of ways. It doesn't have to be a prior internship. It can be like a club, like Aaron mentioned, working at a nonprofit, etc.
Aaron, I think you were a project manager for a company earlier in the summer. Could you talk about your experience, the differences between those two roles?
Yeah, it's it's much different than what an actual PM is. I was a project manager for that consulting club that I was mentioning. So it was just straight up a consulting thing, not a tech thing. But in my role, I would manage 5 other student consultants through a consulting project for this small restaurant, minority-owned business in Seattle during COVID. You know that like the restaurants are hit especially hard. So I think it was really impactful and extremely amazing to be able to help a company during that time. But a lot of that job was really just stakeholder management, managing meetings, leading meetings, just things like that, being able to pull everyone together, make sure everyone's on the same page. And yeah, I guess, that's like the main thing I did for that experience.
Awesome. So I think some of you might have touched on this a little bit before, but this is getting super popular in the Slido. For PM or product marketing interns or even full-time entry-level positions, what kinds of experience or hard skills do they value on the resume?
I can't speak too much about PM because I don't have a technical background, but I guess this might be applicable if there's like non-technical PM positions or product marketing management PMM positions. But I know it sounds weird to be like, oh, there's like not exactly a lot of technical skills you could write on paper, but you know, having like the basics of like, you know, Google Suite, Microsoft Word, Office, Excel, PowerPoint, like those are things that if you don't have at least a basic understanding, I think having a pretty good familiarity of that software is some good things you could put down. Like if you have experience in data, like writing data analytics or Google Analytics or any platforms you can think of that you would use potentially as a marketer, or like you can even write like decking skills or graphic design, or I'm talking more about like the skills that like you would write on your resume. In terms of like soft skills, I guess you want to try to convey in your whole story and your interview is, definitely problem solving, leadership, critical thinking, using data to support all your answers, and strategy and work, like really using data driven everything, because they're going to want to see like, okay, like how did you come up with this? Like, why are we launching in this city first? Or like, why did you pick that color? Like they want something to back it up. So really getting used to being like data driven. Yeah, I feel like those are good ones. Of course, like working well with people, like working well because you do work with cross-functional teams, engineers. Maybe not so much as an intern. You'll probably work with other teams more when you come back full time or you're like actually at the company. But yeah, like working with different types of people, like learning how to manage your own work streams. Like everyone said, like you have to be pretty much a self-starter, because technically it's like product marketing management. So there's like aspect of management that they're looking for you to be able to manage not only your own work streams, but you might be, working with third-party people, and like you have to manage their work or other players as well. So those are some things that immediately come to mind.
Yeah, and to add on to that, like I really echo the data-driven part. If you're able to use data to become a really good storyteller, I think that's one of the biggest things you can do for being a good product marketer or even PM. Not outside of just like interviewing and applying, storytelling, I think is up there and like the most important skills you can have as a business role in the tech company.
Adding on to that, usually the job description will tell you at least what they think they want. So that's definitely a good place to start. You can, again, look at their website and see, like, they usually will say, like, oh, these are the qualities we look for in APMMs. The other thing to consider, too, is APMM is a very broad term. It means something completely different at different companies. And also, even within a company, there's so many different divisions of what that can mean. So that could mean, enablement, that could be core product marketing, that can be more like demand generation. So it's good to know like exactly what role you're applying for, and then using whatever metrics are relevant for that. So just being as specific as possible.
All right, we have a question from Mark. What were the first 3 action items and a top goal once you got into your internship? I have a feeling that this could be, you could take this in a like work direction and the actual stuff you're doing, but also just high level like stuff like personal goals and professional goals.
I mentioned my work stuff earlier, so maybe more talking about my own like personal and professional things. Like one, the culture at Google is like really flat, so I can schedule a meeting with literally anybody in the entire company. Maybe not Sundar, but I was able to like talk to like VP of marketing, like Marvin Chow, and like a lot of really, really way important people. So like that was my big goal, was like I really wanted to talk to as many people in industry, like director level, manager levels, like as much as possible. And so that was like a goal that I really focused on, I was able to do. And the weeks go by so fast, so you really just have to like go. And like while you're an intern, you can still use, like people want to talk to interns, and it's almost better to coffee chat people as an intern than it is when you're like a first year at a company, because like as your intern you still have that like, oh, like she's an intern, that glamorous aspect about you that people really adore. But like once you're here, like like she's just a worker. So I would definitely like use that and take advantage of that. And another thing that I really wanted to do was like learn a lot. So I had the choice to work on a social media project as my main project, but I like was familiar in that field already. So like I wanted to really take initiative and learn things I haven't before, which is why I took on projects that I wasn't familiar with before. So that's something I really focused on, was like really challenging myself and learning new skills, aka like hence why I'm here. And yeah, those are the big things. And like I know like from my managers and like hearing from my team, like one thing that I always wanted to work on is like structuring my answers better. Like that's very consulting style, but that's something I think a lot of marketers sometimes tend to lose is like a lot of the fun and story and like data, but like really like structuring the answers. And that's why like I think a lot of consultants come to tech, and also tech people also go into consulting events. Like there's a lot of back and forth because I think both industry really value structure. So at least at Google. So yeah, like that's something I was always working on is like, okay, how do I structure this answer? How do I make it clear? Like what's the story arc? Like it needs to be crystal clear for people because people are busy and they got to go through so much content a day. So yeah.
I guess I can take that one. Yeah, I mean, the main thing I was thinking about going into the internship was just network, network, network. Like, as I told you guys, I'm interested in becoming a PM. So I would just set up meetings with PMs all across the organizations, whether it be someone on Xbox or Microsoft Teams or Azure. I try to meet with everyone. And similar to Google, like you can message anyone and they'll be happy to meet with you, play that intern card, uh, as Joseph said. But yeah, that was honestly the biggest takeaway from this summer is being able to network with people and just learn from them, learn about their experiences, just to really shape what I want to do as a full-time employee and for the rest of my career.
I'd say for me, my biggest priority was I just wanted to provide like as much value as possible, as quickly as possible, to make myself, an invaluable asset pretty quickly. So I think that was actually something that I struggled with at the beginning because there's so much to learn, especially at a tech company. So you have to spend like the first week just doing like so much learning and at Salesforce we have this thing called like Trailhead. So that's like the sort of learning courses you take. So a lot of my first week was just getting up to speed on all the different products. What's also unique about SMB, which is small to medium business, the segment I'm working on, is we basically oversee a segment as opposed to a product, which is how the rest of Salesforce is divided up by. So I had to learn every single product that touches that segment, which is like a lot more technical knowledge than like a lot of the other interns at Salesforce had to learn. So first getting up to speed, and then just seeing like what I wanted to work on, because my manager told me like, oh, I want you to work on something you're actually passionate about. So I had to network, set up a lot of calls with like everyone on the team, figuring out like what I was passionate about, like what opportunities were available and like where I could make the greatest impact. And another thing too is I'll also echo what the other speakers said in terms of it being pretty flat. Everyone is very enthusiastic and happy to talk to you, especially if you're an intern. So definitely wanted to network. Also definitely wanted to get some resources for my startup. So talking to a lot of people in the education space, in the venture startup space, because those are all divisions that are available at Salesforce. So just making the most of all the resources there.
All right, we have a pretty in-depth product marketing question. So in terms of go-to-market strategy in product marketing management, there seems to be two approaches to positioning a product in customer segmentation. The first one is researching the features of the product and what kinds of audiences would appreciate it. And the second one being taking the current converting audiences by shifting the value proposition. Which approach do you gravitate towards, if any?
Could you repeat that one more time?
Yeah, totally. It's a longer question. So there's, in product marketing, there seems to be two approaches in positioning a product in customer segmentation and go-to-market strategy. So the first one is researching the features of a product and what kinds of audiences would appreciate those features. And then the second one is taking the current converting audiences by shifting the value proposition.
I think we naturally do a mix of both. Yeah, like going forward and backwards at the same time. Um, yeah, that's it. That's my answer. I think we do a mix of both.
All right. If yeah, we can just move on to the next question if not everyone else has an answer. So let's go back to the question that we got before this panel. It's kind of interesting. How do you implement and stay true to your own core values while working for large tech companies?
Yeah, for this one, I think you just need to know the company that you're about to be a part of. And if they don't align with your values, then you have to make the decision on your own if you want to be there or not. But for me, within Microsoft, there's these things called employee resource groups where you can find a bunch of like communities and allies to engage in meaningful discussions with you. So I was a part of like the Asians of Microsoft employee resource group. There's also like a Blacks at Microsoft, Latinos at, or Latinx at Microsoft, things like that. There's really a community for everyone, and everyone, even if they're not even a part of those groups, are still willing and want to engage in those conversations. Like something that was done across all of marketing was we would read a book about like social justice, and we would discuss it at a meeting, and that was mandated across all of marketing. So there's a lot of resources within at least Microsoft for finding things that you care about and people that will engage in those discussions with you.
Yeah, I'd say it's Salesforce. Actually, culture was one of the hugest draws, and the reason I chose Salesforce over some of the other big companies I was considering. They really practice what they preach. They say that they care about culture. They have equality groups, which are similar to the ones that Aaron mentioned. So they have ones, for different ethnic groups, and LGBTQ, disability, pretty much equality group for everything, which is really incredible. And these are like extremely active, and then they really like lead first with their community in everything they do. So I think, you shouldn't have to pick and you shouldn't have to think like, oh, how do I uphold my values in the company I'm working for? You should pick a company that really does align with your values, and that you feel happy and that you can come home and proudly say like, I work at this company.
Yeah, just like what Danielle and Aaron said, Google also has a lot of like those employee resource groups and like Asian at Google and women at Google, and those are some things I was able to be a part of during my summer. But in terms of like the company itself, I think I think cancel culture is like a really big thing right now. And I think I just want to highlight, like, there is no perfect company. Yeah, there's like not a perfect company out there. Like every company you work for is gonna do something that doesn't align with something about your values. So I think it's like, if it really comes down to it, you have to pick and choose the battles you want to fight and the causes that you want to stand for, and other ways how you can use your voice and like other ways to support other, like, if that makes sense. Like there's no perfect way to be like a worker, if that makes sense. I think, for example, like what I really like about Google is that although I think tech companies in general have gotten a lot of like a bad name because of how like privileged Americans are with like our access to Wi-Fi technology, but there's so many countries that are literally just getting on the internet, and a lot of the tech companies like Salesforce, Microsoft, and Google are just introducing them to the internet. They're just discovering what Wi-Fi is and like internet at a low speed. Like there's so many things that we forget to look at the other end of the spectrum of how many opportunities technology has opened up, and like so many people are still getting introduced to it. And so like that to me is like something still very beautiful and awesome to see, that like they just got on Gmail, like they just got on Google Maps. Like we get so lucky and privileged that like technology is like so easy for us. It's easy for us to start complaining about what about this, but we forget to like take a step back and realize like the net positive that technology has opened for so many people just beyond Americans. I think is something that I always get like choked up about it. I was like, oh my God, like that is so cool. And, you know, I was on, technically it's called MBU/payments, and Next Billion Users, they provide like the super, super low quality apps that go on those very, very affordable phones, right? That in the middle of nowhere, somebody is using to access like Google Maps or Google Photos. And so those are small things like I try to think about, like, okay, the net positive, like things that a company is doing. And, you know, like, you know, all these companies, I know they do donation matches, they have donate tons to charity, and there's a lot of stuff that they do for, you know, social work. And of course we could always do more. But I think that's like another thing to look at, is like that aspect as tech as well, because I know a lot of people are like, oh, like big tech, big companies, not just tech companies, like every big company kind of has that rap. But yeah.
Yeah, that's a really interesting perspective. Thanks for answering all these questions, guys. This is really insightful. We're now going to go into the coffee chat raffle. So, Vicky, if you want to take it away with that.
Yes, if you guys want to win